Good evening. We are very happy with the opportunity to be here tonight and speak with you, to share with you a little bit about the history of this baby charism in the church. I have to say that we were surprised with the invitation, but really happy, really honored to be here. I would like to start with what I consider to be the most relevant about the beginning of the community, our story, and then I'll go on to talk a little more about the charism and the mission of the Poor of Jesus Christ. We were founded in Brazil in 2001. The founder, Father Gilson Sobreiro de Araújo, an oblate of Mary Immaculate at the time, only being ordained to the priesthood for 2 years, felt that God was calling him to something else. He didn't understand what God wanted of him, such a young priest. And then in his spiritual life, he started asking God a question. Lord, if you want me to do something else, if you want more of me, then tell me. What am I to do? What is that you want me to do? God, in his mysterious ways, started to answer Father Gilson's question when he got invited to celebrate Mass at a retreat called Christian Missionary Experience in Brazil. A retreat especially prepared, especially taught for young adults in life struggling with a life in drug addiction and a life of sin. He asked to participate in the retreat as any other participant. He told them, I will leave the retreat and I don't want you to tell them that I am the priest. I'll be there the whole time and you will only tell them that I am the priest who will celebrate Mass minutes before the Mass is to start. They all agreed. And when they announced that the priest who would celebrate Mass was among them since the beginning of the retreat, the young men were shocked because they shared a room with Father. And Father would tell us that during the night, all that they were talking about was women, drugs, parties. So they were really embarrassed to see that the priest was there with them. That retreat opened Father Gilson's eyes to witness the struggle of these men and women to stay sober. He was so deeply touched by their stories and their fight to overcome addiction that he resolved, as if in an oath between heaven and earth, to help them, to dedicate his life to helping them. Together with our founder, Sister Servant, a lay woman at the time, and a small group of young people, Father Gilson rented a house in a poor neighborhood in São Paulo, and with the help of divine providence, and we say divine providence because money he didn't have, he still doesn't, they started welcoming young drug addicts to live with them. He left the elegant provincial house of the Oblates, taking with him nothing more than the clothes that he was wearing. The work with young people struggling with substance abuse led the community to the prisons and the streets, which are the two places where most of them are found. One group of those first members, went to work in one of the most violent prisons in Brazil, in São Paulo, and the other group went to a south side of the city in a poor neighborhood where the greatest concentration of homeless population was. After some time, Providence gave us our first house where we could more properly start our rehabilitation center. The mission of the Poor of Jesus Christ then started to spread, to expand to other parts of Brazil. And after only a year of our foundation, Bishop Pedro Luiz, in agreement with Cardinal Claudio Umes, Archbishop of São Paulo at the time, welcomed our community into the church. Given our continuous growth and testimony, Bishop Pedro, on July 31st, 2011, in the Diocese of Franca, São Paulo, granted us our first recognition as a private association of the faithful. Then on January 20th, 2016, the church recognizes us as the public association of the faithful, steps that any religious life and religious community is starting need to take to become a congregation. Father would always tell us, as long as we remain faithful, we will grow. And so we did. In 2009, we were invited to open our first mission abroad in Asunción, Paraguay. From Paraguay, we went to Bolivia, and from there, on January 2012, here to the United States. Then came missions in Chile, Nicaragua, Canada, El Salvador, France, Africa, Guatemala, Costa Rica, Argentina, and Portugal. The charism of the poor of Jesus Christ, Jesus totus, totus Jesus, Jesus all for Jesus, reveals a deep desire and even a bold pretension to have Jesus all and to be all his. The first and only condition for us to have Jesus all is that we must respond with complete freedom to his loving and demanding invitation. Whoever wishes to come after me must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. Matthew 16:24. Only love can make us all his. Without love, we would be taken by the fear of not fulfilling this sublime and demanding gift. But in love there is no fear, but perfect love casts out fear, as we see in the first letter of St. John, chapter 4:18. The poor in their multiple faces are the recipients of the mission of the poor of Jesus Christ. Gospel of Luke, chapter 4, verse 18, evangelize the poor. This is the mission of Christ. This is the mission of the church. This is the mission of the poor of Jesus Christ. Evangelize the poor. All of our missionary work is for the poor and because of them. I think that it is important to say that we don't pretend to solve society's problems. No. We would have lost our charism if we thought that social promotion is the most important thing and that we are going to solve all problems of the poor, thus forgetting the essential. Our community was born to serve the poor by providing them with an encounter with the person of Jesus of Nazareth, by giving them an opportunity for salvation, by giving them dignity, a welcoming and fraternal family. There is no other title a poor of Jesus Christ would like to be known for than as servants of the poor. The poor of Jesus Christ ministries will reflect our mission to serve Jesus and the poor. The work we do will depend on the need of the local community where our mission house is located. Throughout the world, our work will vary. We have prison ministry, street ministry, rehabilitation houses for men and women struggling with any kind of substance abuse, work with men and women in situation of prostitution, malnourished children, shelter houses for elderly, for vulnerable people on the streets who do not count with the support of their families. We also have support houses and shelters for single mothers who decided on keeping the life of their babies, and so forth. Throughout these 2 years, we have had the blessing of serving many of God's children, of learning their stories, and of being part of their journey. I would like to share with you the story of Maria. Maria is a lady whom our community sheltered at the very beginning of our foundation. This is what Father Gilson, our founder, says when he tells Maria's story, and I quote, "One day, When the sisters and the friars went to Mass, they heard a moaning coming out of a pile of rubble. They stopped to see what it was and discovered that a woman was groaning under the rubble. With the help of police officers, who initially resisted placing Maria in their vehicle, because obviously she didn't smell good, Maria was taken to the sisters' house. The sisters quickly took her to get cleaned up. As they bathed her and cut her hair, they perceived various wounds where some maggots began to appear. They realized then that between the scalp and the skull, there were hundreds of maggots. The sisters took Maria to many hospitals, but none of them wanted to admit her, saying that there were nothing they could do for her. Then the sisters took her back home, and they themselves started caring for her. Each day, the sisters used a small pair of tweezers, and one by one, they would pull the maggots out of Maria's head, and then treat the wounds with some ointment. Today, that woman, Maria, who smelled bad and was being eaten alive, is still in one of our mission houses, fully recovered and happy. She lives with us to this day. Maria is deeply loved by everyone in the community. Maria, one human soul. In the mathematics of the kingdom, an individual is not a statistic, but a person. That is what Jesus tried to tell us in the parable of the lost sheep and the prodigal son. One is important. One is important for God. One is important for a poor of Jesus Christ. If you allow me, there is someone else I would like you to meet through the testimony of our founder. His name is Rodrigo. He says, Rodrigo was just 12 years old when he started using drugs. At the age of 14, he was already placed in a rehabilitation center, a governmental one, but it did not help much. And instead, there Rodrigo learned the arts of crime. At 18, he ended up in prison and remained there for over 2 years. When he got out, after 15 days of freedom, he went back to his home state, Pará, in Brazil, to live with his parents. Unfortunately, one of his accomplices broke into his parents' house and killed both of them in front of Rodrigo, while pointing a gun to his head. Rodrigo got to witness the death of his parents, and he knew it was because of him. After such tragedy, having lost the only people he had left in life, Rodrigo went to São Paulo and was living on the streets. And you can imagine in what situation, emotionally, spiritually, Rodrigo was in. It was in this situation that one day the friars found him during his street ministry in 2004. And Rodrigo was brought into one of our houses where the friars lived. When he finished his rehabilitation, which takes 9 months in our houses, and is infused with prayer and healing love of Christ, he went back to Pará, to another center of rehabilitation run by us, to help the other men in recovery. While there, something very unexpected happened. It was election day in Brazil, and Rodrigo had to go vote. In front of him in line, there was the same man who helped to murder his parents. And what does he do? Instead of revenge, Rodrigo chose to forgive him and pray for his conversion. Today, Rodrigo gives his testimony at retreats we held in our community for people who lived similar experiences. Only Jesus can transform hate into tangible love. Our charism exists for the church, for people like Rodrigo and Maria, for consecrated souls looking for a place to donate their lives to Christ completely, and for all those who want to join us in our work of evangelization, prayer, and service to the church. The army of people gathered to live and serve Christ in this charism is absolutely beautiful. In only 21 years, God has called about 400 women, 100 men, some of them being ordained priests, a countless number of married couples and young people, not mentioning those who after their treatment decided to dedicate their lives to helping others to recover. Apart from the friars, priests, and missionary sisters, we also have the contemplative sisters in our monastery in Brazil, praying for the church, for the work of the charism, and for the sanctification of its members. The lay associates, married couples who make their promises in the community, go out with us to the streets, prisons, and other ministries. They are the ones who take charge of the rehabilitation centers in many parts of the world, leading retreats, prayer groups, and formations. In addition to the lay associates, we have a beautiful ministry with kids and adolescents. We have many young people who join us in spreading the good news of the gospel in places where we religious could not go. In sum, everyone is important and invited to serve and evangelize those who need the redeeming love of Christ. Well, there is much to say, but I think I have said enough for now. And you can always come to us with questions, any doubts, any further explanation. Or if you feel in your heart that God is calling you to help us in our ministry, come and pray with us and go out with us, do ministry with us. There's always a place for one more, right? I want to finish by saying that we are really, really happy to be at the Basilica. Really, really happy for having me welcomed here by you, Father Tyler, Archbishop Laurie, Father Brandon, and all of you. We feel really welcomed. Thank you so much. We are small and simple, but it is with a lot of joy that we want to serve this local church in whatever way we can. Thank you for receiving us with such open arms, and may God bless us all.